Hi everyone. I hope you all got the bribe, right? Got the bribe to stay awake after a good lunch. Um, I'm going to have to start my presentation with a story. There was an Indian politician who was in power, came to the US, and he had his counterpart, a senator in Washington, take him up to his house. And the Indian politician was so amazed at um, the amount of wealth that was displayed, the size of wealth that was displayed at the senator's house. He then took him to his farmhouse in a rural area, and then there was all these high-priced animals, horse stable, wealthy cars, and this Indian politician was so dumbfounded. Oh my God, I've been doing this for the last 40 years and I'm not able to amass such kind of wealth. So when they come up and that evening at dinner, he asks the senator, how did you build so much wealth? And the senator takes him to the top of his house. It's like a 3-4 storied mansion. And on the top of the mansion, they both stand together, and the senator points him to a river and says, do you see the river? And the Indian politician says, yes, I do. And do you see a bridge on it, on top of it? And the politician from India says, yes, I do. And the senator says, that bridge was built while I was in power, and the contract was taken by one of my cronies. And then the Indian politician goes back to New Delhi, and the same American politician goes to Delhi on a visit to India. And then there is a much larger display of wealth at the Indian politician. This is after a few years. And the American senator asks him, how did you make so much money after we met? And then he takes him to the top of his house, and then he shows him the river and asks him, do you see the river? The senator says, yes, I do. Do you see a bridge on top of it? And the senator says, no, I don't. And the Indian politician says, exactly, that contract, I got it when I was in power, and my brother-in-law built the bridge that you don't see. So, to put things in perspective, the last couple of days I've been handing out these 0 rupee notes to friends in the conference, and I found that the perspective about corruption is way different than what it is in India. For a person, for a citizen of the United States or any other developed nation, corruption is at the higher levels of politics. It's bundled into million-dollar projects, contracts. But then in a country like India, it's a day-to-day affair. A citizen cannot, regardless of his wealth, regardless of his educational status, social status, cannot live his life or her life without paying a bribe for anything and everything. You name it, you have it. Starting from the birth certificate to put your child in school, in public school, in a private school, the cost just varies. To get a nativity certificate, to get an income certificate, to get a passport, there is something called a ration card, which is like a primary document for every family in India. To get all of these, you need to pay a bribe. This is on top of a governmental fee. So that is why Fifth Pillar was founded in the year 2006, to make sure that the future generations don't have to go through the suffering. Because we at Fifth Pillar believe there are two most vicious crimes of mankind. One is avoidable suffering, the other is unfulfilled potential. So what is the idea? Adam, can you go back, please? So what is the idea whose time has come, that whose invasion cannot be stopped? Democracy? Well, that's not a new idea. It's been there for centuries. So our forefathers, founders of democracy, defined or coded democracy with the following 3 keywords: by the people, of the people, for the people. But unfortunately in India and a few other developing nations, the word democracy and its meaning have been corrupted a little bit. So we have by the people, of the people, and then get as far away from the people. So that is democracy. The true democracy is lacking, non-existent in the real sense per se. And so Fifth Pillar then started digging on what are the reasons, who is responsible, who is the custodian of democracy. Then there are 4 pillars. We all have studied this in school and college. And in India, all the 4 pillars put together constitutes only 1 to 2% of the population because we have like a big population. It's 1.1 billion plus, and out of this, there is less than a million that is put together all over the country. People belonging to the legislative, the judiciary, and the executive and the press. It is like always less than 5% at the most, I'll give. And then we decided it has to be the people who are in control of democracy and not the four pillars. And that's why the organization was named Fifth Pillar. And the mission statement goes like this: encourage, enable, and empower every citizen of India to eliminate corruption at all levels of society. And what does the dictionary say about corruption? I just chose the few meanings. There are like almost 8 to 9 different variations of the word corruption, the meaning for the word corruption. I just chose the most I liked or hated, if you will: moral perversion, depravity, perversion of integrity, bribery, putrefactive decay, rottenness. Why is it then practiced so well in public in countries like India? People do not find it shameful, whereas some people take pride that they make extra money just by taking bribes on the side. And that is where we wanted to start at, and that is why the zero rupee note. The zero rupee note came in as a very handy tool to shame the people who take bribes in public offices, in broad daylight, in front of people. And then we also wanted to add that with Transparency International's definition about corruption, which is abuse of public trust for private gain. And the chart you see here is a comparison of the world countries in how they fare in the field of corruption. And the darker the blue, the more corrupt the nation is. And to put it in simple words, Transparency International uses metrics and measures the pace and the quantum of money reaching the common man, the citizen, how fast it reaches the common man and how much of money reaches the common man through a governmental program or a scheme. The lighter the blue, the less corrupt the nations are. As you could see, Canada, North America are lighter, and most South American countries, Asian countries, and African countries are darker, which means they are high on the index. And coming to India, it ranks 84th in the World Corruption Perception Index. The United States is under 25. It kept moving from between 15 to 25 in the last 2-3 years, whereas India was 72nd 2 years back, and we dropped 12 notches, and we are now 84th in the world index. Why target corruption? It's a no-brainer. It's economically unfair, disadvantages the poor and the middle class from obtaining fundamental rights, makes life harder and miserable. We are talking about the people who one of our speakers, Daryl, a couple of days ago referred to. 40% of the world's population is living with $2 a day, $2 a day's income. And we are talking about that category of people, makes life harder and miserable. Because the people who can afford, the wealthy or the middle class or the upper middle class in India, who can afford paying a bribe, hide behind excuses, saying that if I don't pay a bribe, somebody else is going to pay. If I don't pay a bribe, I'm not going to get the service. So they hide behind excuses, and we call them masks. And Fifth Pillar's mission is to tear off all these masks in the coming 10 to 20 years with the help of the younger generation, the teenagers and the children. And that's a pie chart detailing the various forms of corruption. And as you see, the smaller sectors in different colors are all corruption related to businesses and companies, corporate entities, small to medium-sized businesses, whereas the 51% right here on the rightmost edge, that affects 99% of the population. That is services, fundamental rights that every citizen of India is entitled for. And that timely service is always delayed, denied, or halted for want of money or want of some other equivalent service so that they can get it on time. What does it translate into the life of a common man? Every citizen has to pay a bribe no matter what. Any service, any department, any social status that they live in, they have to pay a bribe. The price list varies across departments and across different classes of people. If you know someone, it's fine. You just have to pay a little more extra and get it faster. No bribe, no service. That's the state of corruption in India. What are the dangers and challenges in fighting corruption in India? These were the norm until a few years back, until we started working on the ground. And even today, we are not saying that the entire population of India has got a whiff of what we are doing and they have changed their mindset and attitude and their habits. But whoever has known or heard about Fifth Pillar and joined us as a member or a supporter or as a donor or as a subscriber to our newsletter, they have been able to say no to bribery just with a 0 rupee note. They didn't have to speak a word. All they have to do was stick it out. And until they came across the 0 rupee note or Fifth Pillar, they were afraid to raise their voice against corruption because they're going to have to suffer disruption of service. And the next, the higher danger is people get beaten up if they confront political corruption. And that becomes a larger danger for the entire family. Even if people go into hiding, the family gets intimidated, the family gets attacked. And there have been a few cases of murders of government officials who were serving in the government and who blew the whistle on corrupt scandals, and they were murdered. In the last 10 years, there have been at least more than a dozen murders in India of very high-profile officials. And then we decided we need to mobilize larger coalitions of people in every district, every state of India. And that is when we launched the Fifth Pillar Freedom from Corruption movement. We launched this primarily in college campuses. Sometimes we went to the schools and we mobilized the college students against the corrupt practices. And we kept saying we are not against anybody, but we are for the people, for the society, for the country, for India. And that appealed to the students, and more students joined us and acted as messengers of the Zero Corruption campaign to take the 0 rupee notes to their parents, because the parents were already given up hope. They did not believe that it is possible to come out of a society that's reeling under corruption for the last 4 to 5 decades. Whereas the teenagers and the children were more than confident, and they talked and the parents listened. And we just now heard from Laura's speech about the FOIA Act, and we have a very similar equivalent law in India called the Right to Information Act. And Fifth Pillar has been instrumental in taking the Right to Information Act training to more than 500,000 students in the last 4 years. We have gone to their colleges and we have conducted a 90-minute program called Freedom from Corruption, during which we dedicate 30 minutes to train the students on how to use the Right to Information Act. And used the right way in an effective manner, the Right to Information Act has been helpful in unearthing a lot of scandals that have already happened, and also halted a lot of scandals that were brewing within government departments. And this is the 0 rupee note campaign. I guess I'm running out of time, so I'm going to quickly sift through the remaining slides and I will make them available online. If you go to our website, this presentation will be available from tonight. And we call it a weapon of non-cooperation. The different sets of information on the front and the back of the 0 rupee note make it convenient for the citizen to say no to corruption without any fear or inhibition. And at the same time, on the other side, it works creating the shame and the fear. And some of you might be thinking, why not outside India? So we created a website called zerocurrency.org. On this, we have the currencies of more than 170 nations recreated in the zero format, and you're all free to download. And if you know someone working in your respective nations in the United States, and we can use the $0, 0 pesos, wherever. We have a few organizations in other countries that are working with us. We call it a flag of freedom from corruption, and we urge the students to raise it in unison and take the pledge. I promise to neither accept nor give bribe, because they're going to be the future politicians, the future bureaucrats, and the future citizens of the country. And we have a large-sized banner which we roll out in the college premises and have them all sign on it as an endorsement that they will not take a bribe, they will not give a bribe in their lifetime. We conducted human chains on the beaches of India and mobilized thousands of students who raised slogans against corruption. This is the name of our campaign, Hug Honesty and Kick Corruption. And everybody has used it. A 70-year-old woman, a 19-year-old teenage college student, an IT professional. Everybody has used it, and it's worked like magic. The instant that they handed it out, they got the job done without a delay or denial. And one coordinator of the organization even went to the extent of stuffing 1,000 zero rupee notes in an envelope each and mailing it to 1,000 officials in a particular department. There was a bribe paid. One of our members paid a bribe, got a certificate, and after 2 days, he went back to the office and said, "I forgot to get the receipt. Can I get the receipt?" And the guy was shocked, and he said, "You can't get a receipt for a bribe." And he said, "I'm willing to pay you an extra 1,000 rupees, but I need a receipt. If you don't give me a receipt, I need my money back." At that time, he stuck out the zero rupee note and he got the refund of the bribe. And we believe tragedies in societies and cultures are not because of the bad acts, the bad intentions of a few bad men, but it's because of the silence of the overwhelming majority. So Fifth Pillar is out there to break the silence, and we have a long way to go. We have distributed 1.5 million zero rupee notes so far, but then we have like a 200 million times to go. It took us 3 years to go 1.5 millions, but we don't intend to go for another 600 years. We'll do it in the next 10 years. Why would anyone be interested? Because if Fifth Pillar wins, India wins. If India wins, the whole world wins. And to tell you all how that is, Andrew is not going to let me. So the next PopTech presentation, I get an opportunity, I will explain to you how that works.